A text message always gets read. 98% of all text messages are read within the first 3 minutes. If you don't have somebody who's willing to text you during a deal or during a conversation, like you probably don't really have a real deal. Strike while the iron's hot, as quick as you can, basically. People are afraid to take the risk on a solution, basically. They just don't understand that the impact of them not making a decision is going to continue to hurt their business.
Welcome to the Entrepreneur's Logbook podcast. I'm your host, Zachary. You can find me on social at It's Zach B. In each episode, I bring on experts from various industries for you to learn about their strategies and insights driving excellent business growth. Today, we're joined by Andrew Davis, SVP of Marketing and Sales at TextUs, a business texting platform built for B2B sales and recruiting team. Andrew has actually spent over 15 years in B2B SaaS marketing across demand generation, product marketing, and revenue leadership at companies like Fishbowl, EverCommerce, and Service Fusion, where he basically held every role from director of marketing to VP of demand. And he's basically seen like the go-to-market side of things from like every angle, building culture that outlasted him, launching startup that didn't quite work out, but also helping take a business from $10 to $16 million in just 1 year. He's also a former video producer turned marketer, which kind of gives him a unique perspective and more like a creative lens that a lot of people in like the revenue leadership side of things don't have. And funnily enough, not really Andrew's first rodeo. He actually runs his own podcast, the 98% podcast. But Andrew, it's great to have you on the show. Welcome aboard.
Thanks for having me, Zach. Excited to be here.
I love it. Well, one of the things I always like to ask, as it is a business podcast, and I mean, you've been across the block, to put it very simply. I'd love to understand or hear from you, to be honest, if you had to like restart your career from scratch, because you've been in a couple different places here. What's maybe like the one thing that you feel you would do differently?
I always joke that if I could go back and start from the beginning, I'd be a developer. And build product more than market it. I love the creative side of it, but when I joined SaaS and I started seeing the impact it has on business, I just had ideas left and right, honestly, and I felt like developers probably wouldn't say this, but I feel like developers or engineers by trade have an advantage in the startup world because they can actually build a product and take it to market, right? They may just not know how to market it or sell it or something along those lines, where marketers or salespeople by trade can market an idea or sell an idea, but they can't build it. And usually building it is the expensive part, right? Marketing and sales, they typically pay for themselves and then some if you're doing it correctly. So I'd say I do that. Kind of like sub branch to that, Zach, is I'd probably just take more risks. Honestly, in my younger days, it's harder to take risks with family. Not to say that you can't do it or anything along those lines, but there's obviously more calculated risk associated to that and responsibilities and things along those lines. Man, if you're young out there and maybe you don't have a financial burden of children or a mortgage or something like that, like go for it. Like honestly, you have an idea, just like go for it, right? Because I promise you'll look back and think, man, I had all the time in the world to do it then. You know what I mean? So I'd probably say those two things. I know you asked me one, but I gave you two.
No, it's all good. I mean, it's interesting that you mentioned the development aspect of things, because I swear I've had a similar perspective, like probably like a couple years before like AI came into play. I was like, I have so many ideas of things that I want to build, but I have no clue how to build it. So I'll just leave that out of the equation for now. Maybe we revisit it, but I have the exact same perspective as you, like the developing side of things. And I mean, I think this somewhat also maybe comes from like the creative aspect of things that you have with your background. Like you're probably just a very creative person. You have all these ideas, but getting them like built, that's a totally different story in my book here.
Absolutely. And I'm a sucker for a good UI. I love a front end, that is just a good looking product, right? I joke with our engineering team at TextUs all the time when I ask about UI updates or whatever, and they always ask, is there a specific need? And I just go, no, I'm just a marketer. I just love a good UI. You know what I mean? It's a marketer's best friend in the SaaS space.
I'm like you. Like I've been building some internal tools, and then I've probably been spending too much time on like the UI side of things, making sure it's like looks amazing, but doesn't really matter here.
Yeah, yeah,
But
absolutely.
we're all guilty of that on some level here.
Of
But
course.
for anyone that's because you mentioned like TextUs, and I know I gave a little bit of a description before we started the conversation here. For anyone that's isn't too familiar with TextUs, can you like walk us through like what you do and how it fits into like the sales and like recruiting teams like day to day? Like what kind of problems are you guys solving when
Yeah,
it comes to the work you guys are doing there?
absolutely. So Texas is a business SMS messaging platform that's really designed to increase engagement and produce more pipeline.
Mhm.
Primarily used for either go-to-market teams or recruiting teams that are trying to reach candidates. But really, the pain that Textus solves for, given all our features and integrations, it really helps marketers engage more leads, and then it helps salespeople move more leads and deals through the funnel faster, basically, right?
Mhm.
And we know this because the data is very clear to us. When texting is involved in a multi-threaded communication, deals move faster, leads convert to opportunities and pipeline faster, right? And so it's a medium that is more personal
Yeah.
and really just, hey, it continues to get those people that typically stall either
Mhm.
on a contract or a negotiation to respond, or something along those lines. And so we specialize in those areas, and we've built the platform specifically to solve for those needs because we noticed a dip in the traditional
Yeah.
tools of email and phone. LinkedIn still seems to be pretty popular and work quite well, but SMS is a really strong tool. And for the marketers out there, with RCS and WhatsApp and all these other channels, it's becoming
Mhm.
widely adopted as a channel
Yeah.
for getting their message out.
Yeah. And I think even for like sales teams, I know you talked about that a little bit, but it's an interesting dynamic because I feel like a lot of people are going to stick to email. They might involve like a bit of warm calling or maybe like some cold calling, but texting works like pretty well too. Because a lot of people, they don't like to just pick up the phone. They see a text. There's probably a high likeliness that they'll answer the text. I mean, I know you definitely have more data than I do, but I know from our limited texting experience, we've done some A/B tests and we've booked more calls by just sending like text to people sometimes. So it's like, that's an interesting one. Like you would think it would be total opposite, but
Yeah,
it
no,
works.
and that's only going to grow. If you
Oh
think
yeah.
about like human behavior and the generations that are making decisions for business now,
Yeah.
the generation below me jokes that they will never pick up a phone call. You know what I mean? And so Apple
Yeah.
and Google are building features into cell
Yeah.
phones around that
Hmm.
specifically. You know what I mean? But a text message always gets read. 98% of all text messages are read within the first 3 minutes.
Yeah.
And it's a really personal communication back and forth, one on one. And whenever I get somebody that pushes back on that, I say, hey, it's almost feels like it's too personal or too close, right?
Yeah.
Um, I always kind of say back, I was like, if you don't have somebody who's willing to text you during a deal or during a conversation, like you probably don't really have a real deal. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If they only want to do email or something along those lines, and so it's absolutely growing. It's absolutely effective. It's nothing new for what it's
Yeah.
worth. I just think there's a lot of question marks that are probably around, compliance and legalities of SMS versus email,
Yeah.
or phone or something along those lines that are absolutely addressed with the TextUs platform, and we're very well aware of and build features for.
Hmm.
But the engagements do not lie. We
Yeah.
have a state of engagement report out that I would encourage anyone to go read, but it breaks down engagements by industries and use cases, whether it's marketing, recruiting, sales, whatever it
Yeah.
is, and it beats email and everything, basically,
Yeah.
right? And so if your email is dying, text us is the next call you should make.
Yeah. It's interesting. I mean, I'd love to hear if there's any like I mean, I guess use cases in a way for like sales teams, like historically, like what you've seen. Do you see like most people integrating like multiple like touch points where it's like, hey, like email, calling, texting, or sometimes literally just email and then texting? I imagine you have a lot of data. So maybe there's a few things that you've seen, but I'm always curious because we do obviously do outbound as well here.
Yeah, absolutely. We always recommend multi-threading.
Mhm.
So we always recommend doing as many channels as you can: phone, email,
Yeah,
LinkedIn, whatever it is, especially in a B2B sense, right?
of course.
And so, um, but we know if you only can choose one, we'd rather you choose texting, even if it wasn't us, because your results will be higher, right?
Hmm.
And the use case, especially from a sales standpoint, is always post first conversation, right? Whether that's a discovery in your sales cycle, or a demo, or a cold call, even that got
Hmm.
picked up, right? A text message after is always usually well received
Yeah.
after that. We're not big proponents, not to say that you can't do it, and it's not allowed, because it definitely is, but mass outreach at the top of the funnel, we don't
Yeah.
recommend for a sales use case, only because it can happen a lot with opt-outs and things along those lines. Our recommendation on the sales side specifically is more after that first conversation, create that connection via text, and now you have a channel
Hmm.
that is very highly likely to get a response whenever you reach out. So
Yeah.
if you need to reschedule a call, or you have a question about one of the an MSA, or you have a question about pricing or something along those lines, you have that channel, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of people kind of come back to us, Zach, and say, "Hey, yeah, I do that already. I do it on my personal phone." Right? And it's okay, great, good. I'm glad you're opening that channel. Is all of that logging in your CRM? Can you report that back to your managers or your executive team and say,
Hmm.
"Hey, actually, deals are moving because of this, and I can show it to you," right?
Yeah.
Can you do it out of your CRM and have the activity log and the inbound and the outbound messages, so somebody else can pick up that conversation or whatever it is? And that's just one example, right? And
Hmm.
so I do recommend, if you could start today with your personal phone, but I don't recommend scaling at that level, because it's
Yeah.
very, very difficult to do that and track it. But after first conversation is usually the biggest use case we see on the sales side, more than anything else. Of, hey,
Yeah.
had a great conversation with you today, Zach. Really appreciate it. Just sent you over an email with all the information. Let me know if you have any questions. I'll follow up in 2 days, basically, right?
Yeah.
Super easy. Opens up a line of communication. Somebody can send a thumbs up back or whatever it is. And then now
Mm.
you have that open, and now you can reach them really wherever
Yeah.
they are at that point.
Yeah. Like I feel texting is just becoming like the natural thing where it's like, I can't talk right now. Just like text me. Like a lot of people just like, yeah, like text me. Like I'll respond fast. Like you often see that in
Hmm.
like people's texts or like voicemail and everything. So I think that's definitely like an important one, like all levels. And
Hmm.
we'll get to that later on, but I feel like it helps to bring decisions like forward here. But one thing I wanted to touch on, because you mentioned it like very briefly, like the compliance side of things. There's
Yeah.
like a lot of misconceptions around that where people are like, oh, like I can't send SMS like certain people, and like, am I going to get fined? I mean, I think, what was it? Like in Texas, I think that there was like some laws passed. It was like
Yeah,
per
a bunch of
SMS, like
states.
it was like crazy. I don't remember
Yep.
exactly what it was, but I saw it on X or Twitter. I was like, okay, maybe let's stay away from sending SMS to people in Texas here. But a lot of people hear like texting customers and directly compliance risk. That's like the first thing that they're thinking about. I'd love to understand what's actually like the reality there, and what do most companies kind of get wrong about it here.
Most companies get wrong the fact that they think that they have to go through a special process every single time they want to send a text message, which is
Okay.
is not true at all. There's a couple compliance factors associated to it. Um, the campaign registry, or TCR, compliance as well will get you set up on that,
Mhm.
and that's a compliance process that basically allows you to send types of text messages, whether they're for marketing or sales,
Yeah.
or something along those lines. And then the bigger one that a lot of people probably have heard of but don't necessarily know a lot about, which is 10DLC compliance, which stands for 10-digit long code, which is the
Okay.
traditional phone number that you and I have on our cell phones, and most people have here, at least in the United States.
Mhm.
And that's a compliance of opt-in, basically, to say, hey, my business wants to send text messages on behalf of its business, basically, and they have to get approved for it. So there are certain
Yeah.
requirements associated to that. You submit that information over to us. We get it to the necessary parties, and it may come back and say, hey, we've got to change something on your privacy policy, basically, or we've got to
Yeah.
update your form or something along those lines. Some forms have the checkbox that say, yes,
Yeah.
I opt in, basically, right?
Mhm.
Email is an opt out channel here in the United States. Texting is an opt in channel. But there are
Okay.
multiple ways to opt in. It's not just,
Yeah.
hey, I got to fill out a form and everything along those lines, right? There are opt-out language settings that could be in the system that are sent out, basically, with
Mhm.
your first message, and as long as that's there, that passes a compliance, and carriers are happy. And then we have keyword opt-ins. So I'm sure you've had that before with automation. I'm sure everybody
Yeah.
has, where you text a certain word to a
Mhm.
number, and it can kick back automated messages based
Yeah.
off of the branches or the trees that you want to go down, that you've built in the system. That's an opt-in compliance as well. So there are lots of ways to do it. The
Yeah.
biggest things to keep in mind is, one, you don't want to be spamming, right?
Mhm.
So you don't want to just be blasting a list of 20,000 contacts that you've never talked to before. Like,
Yeah.
it's probably not the best idea, right? I would advise against that, right? But if you have customers, like you wanna open up a customer service channel, basically, and you want to talk to your customers via text and give them that option, there are many ways to remain compliant when you're texting them, and not
Yeah.
get yourselves in texting purgatory or suspension or anything
Mhm.
along those lines. And the good news is like, if you find the right texting provider, they have features that monitor all of that, and kind of keep
Yeah.
you in the loop, and actually some AI built in that actually tells you, hey, the message you're writing may
Yeah.
get looked at from a compliance standpoint, so you may want to reword it this way, right?
Okay.
Or as you're writing it, it tells you how good your message is, right? Or if you're
Yeah.
using something that may flag a carrier or something along those lines, because the carriers do care. The
Mhm.
carriers out there that run all the major cell networks and everything, they're the ones that require this, and
Yeah.
it's not a federal regulation. It's a
Mhm.
carrier regulation at the end of the
Yeah.
day. And so yeah, I think the biggest misconception, Zach, is that people think they have to go through this crazy loophole,
Mhm.
every time they want to do a campaign or multiple times, and
Yeah.
and it's really not. It's, hey, if we get you signed up, we get you through that process. Takes a couple of days
Yeah.
to kind of finalize it, and then when you're up and running, then it's just monitoring and making sure you're being good texters, and that's really where
Yeah.
our team comes in and is helping you out with
Interesting.
that along with the features.
Okay. Yeah, because I mean, I've heard different perspective from like everyone, so I'm happy that I could hear from someone that's in
They
that
all
space.
have them.
Technically.
Yes, there's some misconceptions out there for sure, but
Yeah.
yeah, we wouldn't be around for 13 plus years as a business
Yeah.
if we
I,
didn't
I
know
imagine.
how to manage this.
Fair enough. And one of the things that like I was doing like a bit of research on, one of the things they talk about is like the response time being like
Mhm.
a very underrated lever when it comes to more obviously to like the sales side of things. But I'd love to hear like how does fast a team respond? Why does it matter so much? I mean, I've seen speed to lead, obviously, like it works like very well. But what's kind of like the disconnect that you typically see between how important teams think about it versus how they actually operate and do it? Because a lot of people are like, yeah, it's really important, but they don't actually act upon it.
Yeah, and it's crazy that they don't, because
Yeah.
automation is better than ever today.
Hmm.
Um, Speed to lead is extremely important, and has been for some time, but I actually think it's more important now than it ever has been, simply because humans' attention span, I feel like, is getting shorter and shorter on anything,
Yeah.
right? If you're on social media, that's pretty clear. You're scrolling constantly, right? Um, Even on your phone, right? You've got email, you've got LinkedIn apps, you've got WhatsApp, you've got almost a family group
Everything.
chat, like
Yeah.
constant notifications coming up, right? And that's just communication channels. That's not news and games and whatever it is. And so
Yeah.
I think attention span is limited more than it ever has been. And so we really kind of believe in this strike while the iron is hot, right?
Hmm.
Like, they're on your site. they filled out a form. They've either downloaded your content, requested a demo, wanted to learn more about your services, whatever it is that you provide as a business. Strike while the iron's hot, as quick as you can, basically, because speed to lead shows the higher likelihood of closing a deal is the faster you get in front of them, basically, right? And so I think this whole kind of mentality of, hey, I'll follow up tomorrow, and businesses are still doing that, right? Hey, I'll follow up tomorrow, or those it'll still be kind of a topic for them tomorrow, or even in a couple of hours is no. And it really is dependent, Zach, on the industry as well, for what it's worth. Insurance agencies, for example, somebody puts in a quote for, like, let's say life insurance or auto insurance or something along those lines. Speed to lead is the number one KPI in terms of impact to whether or not you earn that business, right? And so texting obviously is instant, right? Goes out and it's on that person's phone within seconds, right? And I think there's a stat. I could butcher it here.
391%.
Yeah. Yes. Exactly.
Yeah.
391% more. What is it? More likely that
in the first 60 seconds, I think.
Yeah, it's the first 60 seconds of the insurance agency. Yes, you're educating me here on this, right? Yeah,
you're gonna say it, so you got it.
Yes, absolutely. It's the higher likelihood if you follow up within the first 60 to 90 seconds as an insurance agency alone. The probability of you winning that business triples, quadruples, almost. It's crazy in that industry. And we did a webinar a little bit ago with a pretty awesome insurance agency that we talked through these things exactly with them. And it's very clear. It's very, very clear that texting is king in that industry. And then there's other industries, right? Like B2B SaaS, for example. It's a pretty standard playbook there. You want to follow up while somebody's thinking of that because the competition's big and they probably have competing priorities for budget or whatever it is. So make sure that you stay top of mind for them more than anything else. And then, there's other industries, but speed to lead is really important. And texting really helps with that KPI more than anything else. And then you mentioned response rate as well. Like speed to lead will also increase your response rate, response rate will go up instantly with SMS. I'm not a huge betting man, but if I was, I'd bet it every time that SMS is going to beat email on that, and is going to beat phone for sure. When you send a text, for what it's worth, it doesn't say probable spam or potentially spam like a phone call does. You know what I mean? And you can be straight to the point with it. That's usually what good texting is. But speed to lead is a leading indicator of response time, right? And response time is critical to hitting your quota or hitting your monthly goal or whatever it is that your success is measured on.
Yeah, but I like what you mentioned, like the probable spam, because if you look at any like sales channel like outbound, if you're looking at emails can go to spam, happens very often. You're dealing with deliverability issues. If you're thinking about direct cold calls, same thing with like the Apple features and everything. People get a little like blocker and ask like, what are you calling about? And then it just like blocks that. But texting is like the one thing that if you're able to obviously navigate the compliance side of things, you do it properly, you follow like all the regulation, whatever that is, it can be a very effective channel. And I'm having this conversation like myself. I'm thinking like, hey, maybe we should be doing more texting. Maybe we should be doubling on these side of things. So I'm using this conversation to like educate myself here. So
absolutely, yeah. It's crazy. We say it all the time in our meetings. Like it's mind-boggling how many people don't use it for business when they use it every day, hundreds of times in their personal lives. You know what I mean? And that's human behavior. That's just what it is. And in today's age, like it feels more and more like human personal lives and business lives are blended across in terms of like working hours or whether you're remote or anything along those lines. And so, those behaviors are going to bleed into business and texting is absolutely one of those that really drives a real engagement. And so, try it out. Absolutely. Let's have a conversation after this call that can be very beneficial.
Fair enough. And we talked about like stats before, like, we talked about like that 391. There's another stat though. It's something, I think it's like 65% of like pipeline end with no decision rather
Yes.
than like loss to like a competitor or like another person or something like that. Like
Yep.
what's actually driving that? And like how should sales and marketing team be rethinking what they're, I guess, like measuring as a result here?
Yeah, I think what's driving no decision, and what we mean by no decision is businesses that decide to not implement any solution, not just
Yeah.
your solution, but any solution to solve the problem that they're trying to solve,
Yeah.
basically, right? And I think what's driving that is one. I think there's a lot, I think there's a lot of solutions out there that
Of
say they
course.
can do something that it probably could, but there's
Hmm.
no guarantee associated
Yeah.
to it, right? Or there's no data or proof or anything along those lines, a good track record, right? And so I think that's one, right? And people get burned by solutions, right? Tech stacks are huge. It feels like
Yeah.
at times at orgs. So I think that's one, and then two, I think people are afraid to take the risk on a
Yeah.
solution, basically, right? Especially when it's not traditional, right? Email is a
Hmm.
very easy thing. It's been adopted for decades
Yeah.
of business communication, right? And Slack took a little bit to kind of adopt in the
Hmm.
workplace, and now it's
Everyone.
probably beating email in terms of internal communications and business,
Yeah.
I would imagine, and everything. And so I think there's an adoption factor associated to, but I
Yeah.
think more than anything, people just get stuck. They
Hmm.
get stuck and they have a hard time picking out the good from the bad in the herd of who they're shopping for, or what pain point they're looking for, or
Yeah.
solution for their pain point. Excuse me, they're looking for. And I think they just get so overwhelmed that they're stuck because no one stands out,
Yeah.
right? And not to always bring this back to texting, but texting is a way to stand out, right? Not
Yeah.
everybody is doing that, and so if let's say you sell on your customer service, like you're a
Hmm.
very good service provider, and you say, hey, listen, you can go to anybody for digital advertising,
Yeah.
right? But what you're going to get with us is a white gloved, really good customer service. Like I've heard that pitch 1,000 times,
Yeah.
honestly. Like in my career, yeah, I'm sure your customer service is great, right?
Yeah.
But the best companies out there have multi-thread with me, and I can reach them in multiple ways. I
Yeah.
can think of a CSM right now at a company that I took a risk on probably 8 years ago, and I love
Hmm.
them. I still follow their brand. They're in the video marketing space specifically,
Yeah.
and their CSM would text me and would
Okay.
message me on LinkedIn, and she would never just be like, "Hey, submit a ticket and I'll get to it." Basically, it
Yeah.
was always like, "How can I help you?" Right? So I
Uh-huh.
could shoot her a text, I could shoot her a LinkedIn message if I needed to, right? Anything along those lines, and I really felt like their customer service was phenomenal at
Hmm.
that. And that's how you stand out, is actually showing it in the sales process and then following through, basically. Because
Yeah.
listen, if they're shopping 5 solutions for a pain point, not all 5 of them are going to be texting, right?
No.
And if you create that relationship, you create that connection,
Mhm.
you're going to stand out that way. And if you find another way to
Yeah.
stand out, before you know it, you're going to be beating out everybody else simply because you're talking to them in multiple channels.
Yeah. No, I like the multi-threaded approach. I mean, I feel that it's like multi-channel, like outbound. If you're going to be reaching out on multiple different channels, but it's like the same thing with your customers. You also want to be able to be reachable via a lot of different channels, always being like
Yes.
really easily reachable. I mean, that's like the one thing. If you're able to provide a very good customer client experience, people are going to stay longer with you. You're going to get a higher LTV because you're easy to work with. But if it's the
Really.
opposite, that's not going to work too well here.
Yep.
But it's interesting, 65%. Oh, that's a big number though. So it means that if you can effectively navigate and adjust your approach, I mean, you can capture a lot of market share doing that.
Yeah, imagine cutting that close loss reason in your
Yeah,
pipeline in half.
it's
You know what I
crazy.
mean? That's a huge impactful number. Huge
Oh
impactful
yeah,
number. And so um I don't think every close loss reason will ever go away for
of
what
course
it's worth.
not.
Like people just are reluctant to make decisions, or
Hmm.
nervous about making a change. And for what it's worth, like, being in marketing and sales, like there are a lot of salespeople out there that don't know how to handle, hey, this is no longer a business priority, or this is
Yeah,
no longer something that we're trying to explore right now. We'll circle back to it in 6 months. they don't know how to handle that rejection, and
Yeah.
there's a clear difference between the ones that can handle that rejection and the other ones are like, okay, this is clearly they just don't understand that the impact of them not making a decision is going to continue to hurt their business, and so I need
Yeah.
to sell on that value more than anything else.
Love that. Well, I learned a good amount here today, Andrew. I appreciate you coming on. And I guess probably parting thoughts, if there's like any company out there that are like, hey, we want to like leverage texting, like we're looking at texting. Any like piece of advice? Obviously, I know you guys do pretty great work like TextUs, but if they're looking to implement texting within their approach, whether it's for their sales team, recruiting, or even just as a the touch point within their channel, is there like certain piece of the puzzle you would recommend them to look at first? Like, hey, make sure you have this in place first, then look at this, and then consider this type of thing, or?
Yeah, I would say just make sure you know how you want it to work with your other systems. Your use case more than anything else.
Yeah.
So if you want to use it for marketing and sales, like go to market, it's like, okay, do you want automations? Do you want workflows built in HubSpot, Salesforce, Zapier, anything along those lines? And make sure that solution can support that to its best of abilities, and don't be afraid to have high demands for that, right?
Yeah.
And then the only other thing that I would recommend is there is so much technology out there, and some of it's really bad. Make sure it's easy.
Yeah.
Like, it's not difficult to make an easy product in terms of ease of use. So make sure that if you have a larger sales team, right, and maybe they're located all across the country or all across the globe for that matter, right? Make sure it's an easy to use platform that's easy to understand, that can be adopted quickly, because I think probably one of the number one killers of people who stand up texting and then kind of don't stick with it is not results related. It's adoption within the organization more than anything else. And so you just got to make sure that, hey, it's an easy to use product that can be picked up pretty quickly and can be used in multi situations, whether it's, hey, I want to text out of the CRM, or I want to text on my business line on my personal phone, right? And have a mobile app for that. Or I really like Chrome extensions or whatever it is, right? Like, make sure they have that available to you. And then
it's funny that you mentioned that, because I literally had a conversation today. Someone saying like, yeah, probably the biggest failure when you have a new solution or product is the implementation and like integrating it within your organization, having that alignment here. So I feel that that's always a big part of the puzzle. So make sure you obviously get a good tool, all your ducks in a row, and you'll be ready to rock and roll here. But Andrew, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show. We've never had anyone like the texting side of things. It's always an interesting conversation. I know I definitely learned a couple things, but
love being a first.
for anyone that wants to get in touch with you, get in touch with TextUs, get in, just look at what you guys are doing. What's kind of the best way to do so here?
Yeah, absolutely. If you're interested in TextUs or really just learning about texting, we have tons of free solutions on our website, textus.com /resources. You can go there. There's templates on there. Even if you don't use TextUs, you can use our templates, right? And pull those down. There's videos. There's best use cases, data, and benchmarking, anything along those lines. If you want to get a hold of me, I always love connecting with people on LinkedIn, especially if they're struggling with something specific that I can either help them out with advice or actually with a solution that that we provide. You can always find me on LinkedIn, Andrew Davis CMU. And I'll connect. I connect with everybody that sends me a personalized message. So if you send me a non-personalized one, you'll probably just be added to the queue. But if you send me a personalized one, that definitely makes its way to the top. So we'll always reach out. And then you can text me if you'd like. My TextUs number is on my LinkedIn. Feel free to shoot me a text. They all hit my personal phone. Would love to show how the product works in real time.
Cool. Well, we're gonna add all those in like the show notes if anyone wants to check that out here. But yeah, I appreciate you coming on the show here. And to our listeners, if you've enjoyed this episode, don't forget to like, subscribe, review, all that fun stuff. Reach out to Andrew here. And then until then, keep pushing, and we'll see you in the next one.